I see that weird light last night.
What weird light?
You know, crazy. Starbucks was freaked out and barking.
Could have been like,
Get out of there! Run!
what the hell's going on?
Get inside!
I don't care what you say anymore. This is. Go ahead with your own.
God's not gonna let us die here.
Christmas, and now you're telling the kids God's looking out for us?
What about the people who are...
Get back!
Need you to worry for me, 'cause I'm alright.
The End of Oak Street, 2026, a complete analysis. The End of Oak Street is a 2026 science fiction survival thriller directed by David Robert Mitchell. And these analyses and explanations aim to provide a comprehensive understanding of the film's narrative, themes, performances, and technical achievements. The film represents a significant evolution for Mitchell, who previously made his mark with the critically acclaimed horror film It Follows and the divisive neo-noir Under the Silver Lake. Produced by J.J. Abrams under his Bad Robot production banner, in collaboration with Jackson Pictures, the film secured a wide theatrical release through Warner Bros. Pictures on August 14, 2026, positioning it as a major late-summer tentpole release. The project initially entered development under the title Flowervale Street, a name that suggested a more whimsical or suburban fantasy tone, before the eventual title change to The End of Oak Street signaled a darker, more apocalyptic sensibility. The film experienced a notable delay from its originally planned May 2025 release date, a postponement that allowed for additional post-production work on the extensive visual effects required to bring the prehistoric creatures to life. This delay ultimately benefited the film, as the final product showcases polished, seamless visual effects work from Industrial Light and Magic, the legendary effects house responsible for the original Jurassic Park dinosaurs. And Hathaway leads the cast as Denise Platt, delivering a performance that critics have hailed as one of her most compelling in years. Hathaway, an Academy Award winner known for her versatility across genres ranging from musicals to prestige dramas, brings considerable emotional weight to the role of a mother fighting to protect her family in impossible circumstances. Her casting represents a reunion with the type of physically demanding, emotionally intense performance that defined her earlier career work, and she reportedly performed many of her own stunts during the film's more harrowing sequences. Ewan McGregor, cast opposite Hathaway as Greg Platt, brings his characteristic warmth and vulnerability to the role of a father harboring secrets about his professional failures. McGregor's career has spanned independent cinema, major franchises, and prestigious television work, and his presence in the film lends it considerable dramatic credibility. The chemistry between Hathaway and McGregor forms the emotional foundation of the film, with critics consistently noting that their relationship feels authentic and lived in, even when the screenplay requires them to navigate moments of intense marital conflict. The younger cast members, Maisie Stella and Christian Convery, portray the Platt children with a naturalism that avoids the common pitfalls of child performances in blockbuster cinema. Stella, known for her work in the television series Nashville and the critically acclaimed film My Old Ass, brings a teenage authenticity to her role that resonates with audiences. Convery, who gained recognition through his work in the Sweet Tooth series and various genre projects, demonstrates considerable range as he navigates the film's more frightening sequences with genuine terror rather than theatrical overacting. The supporting cast, including P.J. Byrne and Chris Coy as Oak Street neighbors, provides crucial texture to the film's suburban setting. These characters appear primarily in the film's opening act, establishing the community dynamics that will be violently disrupted by the cosmic event. Their presence serves to emphasize the ordinariness of Oak Street before its transformation, making the subsequent chaos all the more jarring by contrast. Cinematographer Michael Jalakis, who previously collaborated with Mitchell on It Follows and Under the Silver Lake, brings his distinctive visual sensibility to the film. Jalakis' approach to the suburban setting emphasizes both its familiarity and its underlying strangeness, using wide-angle lenses and carefully composed frames to establish the geography of Oak Street before the inciting incident. His work during the film's prehistoric sequences demonstrates considerable technical skill, as he must balance the demands of visual effects-heavy sequences with the intimate character moments that ground the story emotionally. The musical score, composed by Michael Giacchino, represents one of the film's most celebrated technical achievements. Giacchino, a composer with extensive experience in both blockbuster franchise cinema and more intimate dramatic work, crafts a score that critics have compared favorably to his finest compositions. The music moves fluidly between moments of Spielbergian wonder and sequences of intense dread, underscoring the film's tonal duality while providing emotional continuity throughout the narrative's various shifts in mood. Visual effects supervisor Roger Guyette and his team at Industrial Light and Magic faced the considerable challenge of creating prehistoric creatures that would feel both scientifically plausible and cinematically terrifying. The film's dinosaurs, which include Coelophysis, Allosaurus, Spinosaurus, and various pterosaur species, are rendered with meticulous attention to anatomical detail and naturalistic movement. The integration of these creatures into practical suburban environments presented unique challenges, as the effects team had to account for how prehistoric animals would interact with modern structures, vehicles, and landscaping. The film's narrative structure follows a deliberately efficient three-act format, opening with an extended sequence that establishes the Platt family's domestic situation and their relationships with their neighbors. This opening act, which includes the neighborhood block party sequence, serves multiple narrative functions simultaneously. It introduces the principal characters, establishes the physical geography of Oak Street that will become crucial during later action sequences, and hints at the underlying tensions that will be exacerbated by the crisis to come. The inciting incident, which occurs approximately 25 minutes into the film, represents a dramatic tonal shift that Mitchell handles with characteristic restraint. Rather than depicting the cosmic event as a spectacular visual spectacle, the director chooses to emphasize the characters' disorientation and confusion. The Platts awaken to find their familiar world transformed, their backyard now opening onto untamed wilderness, and their street mysteriously isolated from any recognizable context. This approach grounds the fantastical premise in emotional reality, allowing audiences to experience the transformation through the character's perspective. The introduction of the film's prehistoric threats occurs gradually, building tension through suggestion before revealing the creatures in full. Mitchell demonstrates his horror filmmaking expertise during these early sequences, employing the same patient pacing and atmospheric dread that made It Follows so effective. The first glimpse of a Coelophysis, glimpsed briefly through a kitchen window, carries considerably more impact than a more ostentatious reveal might have achieved. The Coelophysis pack, which becomes the family's primary antagonist during the film's second act, represents a thoughtful creative choice that distinguishes The End of Oak Street from other dinosaur films. Rather than relying exclusively on the familiar Tyrannosaurus rex or Velociraptor, Mitchell introduces audiences to a predator rarely depicted in mainstream cinema. The feathered Coelophysis, with its bird-like movements and pack-hunting behavior, creates a distinctly unsettling presence that feels simultaneously alien and plausibly real. The film's larger predators, including the Allosaurus and Spinosaurus, appear primarily during the third act's escalating action sequences. These creatures serve as the film's most spectacular visual elements, with the Spinosaurus sequence set in a flooded drainage canal representing one of the film's most technically ambitious set pieces. The decision to include multiple predator species creates a hierarchy of threats that keeps audiences engaged throughout the film's runtime. The pterosaur attacks, which occur during sequences set in the neighborhood's parking lots and driveways, demonstrate Mitchell's skill at transforming familiar spaces into sites of terror. These sequences deliberately evoke the avian attacks from Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, another film that understood the horror of being pursued by flying predators in ordinary settings. The pterosaur's ability to strike from above eliminates the safety that the family might otherwise find in enclosed spaces, maintaining constant tension throughout the film's middle section. The film's thematic exploration of family reconciliation is woven throughout the narrative rather than presented as overt moralizing. The Platt family's dysfunction is established through small, telling details rather than dramatic confrontations. Greg's habit of checking his phone during family meals, Denise's distracted responses to her children's questions, and the children's retreat into separate rooms all communicate emotional distance without requiring explicit explanation. This subtlety makes their eventual reconnection feel earned rather than forced. Greg Platt's hidden professional difficulties, revealed during a tense conversation with Denise in the film's second act, provide crucial character development that explains his emotional withdrawal. The revelation that he has been unemployed for months while maintaining the pretense of going to work each day adds depth to his character, while raising the stakes for the family's survival. His journey from shame and concealment to honest vulnerability represents one of the film's most satisfying character arcs. Denise's existential uncertainty, established through her questioning of her life choices during the opening act, finds resolution through the crisis's demands for decisive action. Hathaway portrays Denise's transformation from passive uncertainty to fierce maternal protectiveness with considerable nuance, avoiding the cliché of the suddenly empowered action heroine. Instead, her character's growth feels like the natural emergence of qualities that were always present but suppressed by the complacency of suburban routine. The children's character arcs, while less prominent than those of their parents, are handled with equal care. Stella's character, a teenager on the cusp of adulthood, must navigate the transition from seeking parental approval to becoming a protector in her own right. Convery's younger character experiences the crisis through a child's perspective, his terror tempered by an instinctive trust in his parents that the adults themselves have lost. These parallel arcs enrich the film's thematic complexity without overwhelming the central family dynamic. The film's treatment of the family dog, which becomes a source of audience anxiety throughout the narrative, demonstrates Mitchell's understanding of emotional manipulation in storytelling. Rather than using the animal's fate as cheap dramatic currency, the director integrates it into the family's emotional journey, making its survival a symbolic representation of the family's own chances for preservation. Hathaway's personal rule about dogs dying in films reportedly influenced the script's treatment of this character, though the specific details remain a topic of audience discussion. The suburban setting functions as more than mere backdrop. It is integral to the film's thematic concerns. The American suburb represents a particular fantasy of safety and predictability, a controlled environment where nature has been tamed and danger kept at bay. The invasion of this space by prehistoric creatures represents the ultimate violation of that fantasy, suggesting that the security we construct is always more fragile than we believe. This theme resonates with anxieties about climate change, economic instability, and other forces that threaten middle-class stability. The film's 1980s aesthetic choices extend beyond mere nostalgia to make a specific argument about the nature of family entertainment. By avoiding smartphones, social media, and contemporary technology, Mitchell creates a timeless quality that allows the story to function as myth rather than contemporary commentary. This choice also connects the film to the Amblin-era productions that clearly influenced it, establishing a lineage that includes E.T., The Goonies, and the original Jurassic Park. The influence of Steven Spielberg on The End of Oak Street is impossible to overstate, and Mitchell seems to embrace this influence rather than attempting to conceal it. The film's structure, which alternates between domestic scenes and spectacular set pieces, mirrors Spielberg's approach to family entertainment. The emphasis on children's perspectives during moments of wonder and terror recalls the master director's technique of filtering extraordinary events through ordinary, relatable characters. Mitchell has acknowledged this influence in interviews, describing the film as his attempt to recreate the experience of watching Spielberg's films as a child. The score's deliberate evocation of John Williams's iconic compositions for Spielberg's films represents a calculated risk that largely succeeds. Giacchino, who has often been compared to Williams, leans into this influence rather than attempting to escape it. His themes for the Platt family carry echoes of Williams's family-centric scores while maintaining their own distinctive identity. The result is a score that feels both familiar and fresh, comforting audiences while still generating genuine excitement. The film's rejection of hard science fiction explanations for its central premise has proven divisive among critics and audiences. Some viewers find the lack of explanation frustrating, arguing that the cosmic event's arbitrary nature undermines the film's credibility. Others defend this choice as consistent with the Spielbergian tradition, noting that E.T. never explains exactly how the aliens' technology works, and Jurassic Park's cloning science is sketched in broad strokes rather than detailed explanation. The film's defenders argue that emotional and visceral impact matter more than logical coherence. The pacing of The End of Oak Street represents one of its most universally praised elements. At approximately 95 minutes, the film maintains relentless forward momentum without sacrificing character development. This efficiency stands in contrast to the bloated runtimes that plague many contemporary blockbusters, demonstrating that compelling spectacle does not require excessive length. The film's lean structure ensures that no sequence overstays its welcome and that audience attention never wavers. The production design, overseen by a team led by production designer Sam Lysenko, creates a suburban environment that feels simultaneously generic and specific. The Platt family home, with its familiar layout and comfortable furnishings, serves as the film's primary setting and emotional anchor. The gradual transformation of this space from sanctuary to fortress mirrors the family's own journey from complacency to vigilance, as windows are barricaded and familiar rooms become defensive positions. The film's sound design deserves particular recognition for its contribution to the overall experience. The creatures' vocalizations, created through a combination of animal recordings and digital manipulation, establish each species' distinct presence before they appear on screen. The contrast between the quiet of suburban night and the sudden intrusion of prehistoric roars creates sustained tension, while the subtle ambient sounds of the wilderness that now surrounds Oak Street serve as constant reminders of the changed reality. The visual representation of the cosmic event itself, shown only briefly and from the character's limited perspective, demonstrates Mitchell's restraint in an era of excessive visual effects. Rather than depicting the phenomenon as a spectacular light show, the film presents it as a disorienting shift that the characters barely perceive. This choice maintains mystery while focusing attention on the consequences rather than the cause of the displacement. The film's treatment of violence strikes a careful balance between family-friendly adventure and genuine horror. The creatures are appropriately threatening, and the film does not shy away from depicting the dangers of the prehistoric world. However, the violence is presented in a manner that serves the story's emotional stakes rather than indulging in gratuitous gore. This approach allows the film to maintain its PG-13 rating while still generating genuine tension and fear. The relationship between the Platt family and their neighbors, established during the opening block party sequence, provides important context for the film's thematic concerns. The neighbors represent the broader community that will be affected by the cosmic event, but the film wisely focuses on the single family at its center. This narrative choice allows for deeper character development than an ensemble approach might permit, while still acknowledging the wider implications of the situation. The film's depiction of childhood resilience, particularly through Convery's character, draws on established traditions in family adventure cinema. Young audiences are likely to identify with his perspective, which combines terror with a childlike capacity for wonder at the creatures he encounters. This duality, fear mixed with fascination, captures the complex emotional response that the best dinosaur films elicit from younger viewers. Denise's evolution from suburban housewife to fierce protector is symbolized through her increasing comfort with weapons and defensive strategies. Hathaway plays this transformation with subtlety, avoiding the sudden transformation into an action hero in favor of a more gradual development of survival instincts. The moment when she first wields a shotgun against an attacking predator has been cited by multiple critics as one of the film's most satisfying sequences. Greg's redemption arc, which culminates in his willingness to sacrifice his own safety for his family, provides the film's emotional climax. McGregor's performance during these sequences captures the character's terror while also conveying the resolution that comes from finally being honest with himself and his loved ones. The film suggests that genuine heroism emerges not from exceptional abilities, but from ordinary people choosing to act courageously despite their fear. The film's ending, which resists easy resolution, has generated considerable discussion among audiences. Without revealing specific details, the conclusion balances hope with ambiguity, suggesting that survival is an ongoing process rather than a final achievement. This approach respects audience intelligence while providing sufficient closure for the immediate narrative arc. The critical consensus surrounding The End of Oak Street reflects the film's position as a well-executed exercise in nostalgic genre filmmaking. Positive reviews praise the film's sincere emotional core, effective performances, and technical achievements. Negative reviews tend to focus on the film's derivative nature and logical inconsistencies. Most critics acknowledge that the film succeeds on its own terms, even if those terms are narrower than more ambitious science fiction projects. The commercial performance of The End of Oak Street, which opened against several other late summer releases, exceeded studio expectations. The film's strong word-of-mouth and positive reviews contributed to a healthy box office run, though it fell short of the record-breaking numbers achieved by some other 2026 releases. The film's modest budget, relative to other effects-driven blockbusters, positioned it for profitability even with moderate returns. The film's place within Mitchell's filmography represents a significant evolution in his career. While his earlier work operated within the independent film space, The End of Oak Street demonstrates his ability to handle the demands of studio filmmaking while maintaining his distinctive artistic voice. The film's success suggests that Mitchell may continue to work at this scale, potentially establishing him as a director capable of bridging the gap between art house sensibilities and commercial entertainment. The influence of producer J.J. Abrams is evident throughout the film, particularly in its emphasis on mystery and emotional stakes over detailed world-building. Abrams's mystery box approach to storytelling, which prioritizes engaging questions over definitive answers, aligns perfectly with Mitchell's own tendencies toward ambiguity. The partnership between director and producer appears to have been productive, resulting in a film that balances commercial accessibility with artistic integrity. The film's visual effects work represents the current state of the art in creature creation, building on the techniques pioneered by the original Jurassic Park while incorporating advances in digital animation and compositing. The decision to combine practical effects for close-up creature interactions with digital effects for wider shots creates a seamless visual experience that grounds the fantastical elements in physical reality. This hybrid approach demonstrates that traditional filmmaking techniques remain relevant even in an era dominated by digital effects. The sound mixing and editing, overseen by supervising sound editor Michael Babcock, creates a layered auditory experience that enhances the film's emotional impact. The contrast between the quiet intimacy of family conversations and the overwhelming cacophony of creature attacks emphasizes the dramatic stakes while maintaining clarity during complex action sequences. The film's sound design contributes significantly to its overall effectiveness as a theatrical experience. The film's color palette, established through Jalakis' cinematography and refined through digital color grading, shifts subtly as the narrative progresses. The warm, comfortable tones of the opening sequences gradually give way to cooler, more threatening hues as the family situation becomes more dire. This visual progression reinforces the narrative arc without calling attention to itself, demonstrating sophisticated craft that serves the story rather than competing with it. The film's treatment of gender roles, while not explicitly political, carries implicit commentary on the evolution of family dynamics. Denise's emergence as the family's most capable protector challenges traditional assumptions about maternal passivity, while Greg's struggle with vulnerability acknowledges the limitations of conventional masculinity. These elements are handled with sufficient subtlety that they enhance rather than distract from the film's entertainment value. The young performers' contributions to the film cannot be overstated, as their authenticity anchors the audience's emotional investment in the family's survival. Stella's performance captures the particular anxiety of adolescence, caught between childhood dependence and adult responsibility. Convery's natural screen presence suggests a promising future career, as he handles both comedic moments and scenes of genuine terror with equal skill. The film's marketing campaign, which emphasized the family dynamic over the spectacle elements, accurately represented the final product's priorities. Trailers featured the characters' relationships prominently while offering tantalizing glimpses of the prehistoric creatures without revealing the most impressive sequences. This approach built anticipation while preserving the element of surprise that contributes to the theatrical experience. The film's title, The End of Oak Street, carries multiple meanings that enrich its thematic resonance. It refers literally to the physical displacement of the neighborhood from its original location, but it also suggests the end of a particular way of life. The stability and predictability represented by suburban existence cannot survive contact with forces beyond human control, a theme that resonates with contemporary anxieties about social and environmental change. The screenplay, credited to Mitchell with contributions from an uncredited team of writers, demonstrates careful attention to structure and pacing. Each scene advances either plot or character development, with no wasted moments or unnecessary subplots. This efficiency contributes to the film's propulsive energy, while ensuring that the emotional stakes remain clear throughout. The film's representation of prehistoric creatures reflects current scientific understanding, while making necessary concessions to dramatic requirements. The feathered coelophysis, in particular, aligns with contemporary paleontological consensus, while still serving the film's horror elements. This attention to scientific accuracy, even within a fantastical premise, lends credibility to the film's world while distinguishing it from less informed dinosaur depictions. The film's exploration of the relationship between civilization and nature is expressed through its central conceit. The transportation of suburban homes into a prehistoric landscape represents a collision between humanity's constructed order and nature's fundamental wildness. The film suggests that our sense of control over our environment is always provisional, subject to disruption by forces beyond our comprehension or control. The film's supporting performances deserve recognition for their contribution to the overall texture of the production. P.J. Byrne brings warmth and humor to his brief appearance as a neighbor, while Chris Coy's understated performance adds credibility to the community's presence. These supporting actors create a sense of lived reality that makes the subsequent crisis more affecting. The film's production schedule, which extended over several months due to the complexity of the visual effects work, allowed for unusual attention to detail in post-production. The editing process, overseen by editor Tyler Nelson, refined the film's pacing through multiple iterations before arriving at the final cut. This deliberate approach is evident in the film's precise rhythm, which balances action sequences with necessary moments of character development. The film's release strategy, which included a traditional theatrical window before streaming availability, reflects changing industry norms in 2026. The decision to position the film as a theatrical experience first, leveraging its spectacle elements to draw audiences to cinemas, proved successful. The subsequent streaming release expanded the film's audience while preserving the theatrical experience as the primary means of engagement. The End of Oak Street ultimately succeeds as a precisely crafted entertainment that understands its own ambitions. It does not attempt to reinvent the dinosaur movie or subvert audience expectations in radical ways. Instead, it executes familiar elements with exceptional skill, creating an experience that satisfies precisely because it delivers exactly what it promises. This commitment to straightforward quality over ironic distance distinguishes the film from many of its contemporaries. The film's legacy will likely be measured by its success in reviving the Amblin-era family adventure tradition for contemporary audiences. While other films have attempted similar nostalgic returns, few have achieved the same balance of emotional sincerity and technical polish. The End of Oak Street demonstrates that there remains an audience for entertainment that values emotional authenticity over cynicism, and that the family adventure genre retains its power to engage audiences across generations. The relationship between the film's critical reception and its commercial performance illustrates the ongoing viability of well-crafted genre entertainment in the contemporary marketplace. While not every film must aspire to awards recognition or cultural prestige, The End of Oak Street demonstrates that excellence within established formulas deserves recognition. The film's success suggests that audiences continue to value skilled craftsmanship and emotional sincerity, even in an entertainment landscape increasingly dominated by franchise properties and intellectual property exploitation. The film's representation of the natural world, both in its prehistoric form and its contemporary suburban manifestation, carries implicit environmental themes. The lush, untamed wilderness that surrounds the displaced neighborhood serves as a reminder of the natural world's power and beauty, contrasting with the artificial order of suburban landscaping. While the film does not explicitly address environmental issues, its imagery encourages audiences to consider humanity's relationship with nature. The chemistry between Hathaway and McGregor, essential to the film's success, developed through careful preparation and mutual respect. Their ability to convey a shared history through small gestures and knowing glances creates a convincing portrait of a long-term marriage, with all its attendant complexities. The film's emotional climax, in which the couple finally confronts their issues honestly while facing external danger, represents the culmination of this carefully constructed relationship. The film's action sequences, while impressive in their technical execution, never lose sight of the character stakes that make them meaningful. Each confrontation with a prehistoric predator represents not merely physical danger, but an opportunity for character development. The family's survival strategies, developed through trial and error, demonstrate their growing cooperation and mutual trust. This integration of action and character development distinguishes the film from less sophisticated examples of the genre. The cinematography's treatment of the prehistoric creatures deserves particular attention for its effectiveness in building tension. Jalakis often films the creatures from the character's perspective, emphasizing their size and speed, while limiting the audience's ability to fully comprehend their form. This approach creates sustained anxiety, as audiences share the characters' uncertainty about the exact nature of the threats they face. The film's use of practical locations, augmented by digital extensions, creates a tangible sense of place that grounds the fantastical elements. The suburban neighborhood where the film was shot provided authentic environments that the production team enhanced rather than replaced with digital effects. This commitment to physical reality contributes to the film's overall credibility, making the extraordinary events feel more immediate and threatening. The score's integration with the film's sound design creates a seamless auditory experience that enhances emotional engagement. Giacchino's themes emerge organically from the natural sounds of the environment, rising and falling with the narrative's dramatic rhythm. The result is a musical experience that feels intrinsic to the film rather than imposed upon it, demonstrating sophisticated understanding of the relationship between music and image. The film's editing creates a rhythm that alternates between intimate character moments and expansive action sequences, maintaining audience engagement through careful variation in pacing. The transitions between these modes are handled with precision, allowing necessary breathing room between intense sequences while preventing the film's energy from flagging. This rhythmic sophistication contributes significantly to the film's overall effectiveness. The End of Oak Street stands as a testament to the enduring appeal of stories about families facing extraordinary circumstances. While the specific threat of prehistoric predators may be fantastical, the emotional journey of the Platt family resonates with universal experiences of fear, love, and the bonds that hold families together through crisis. The film's success lies in its ability to make audiences care about these characters and their survival, ensuring that the spectacular elements serve emotional ends rather than overwhelming them. The film's conclusion, which returns to the theme of home as people rather than place, provides satisfying emotional resolution while acknowledging the permanence of change. The Platt family emerges from their ordeal transformed, their relationships strengthened through shared struggle. The film suggests that this transformation, rather than any physical survival, represents the true victory over the forces that threaten to destroy them. The End of Oak Street will be remembered as a high point in the revival of sincere, emotionally grounded science fiction entertainment. Its success demonstrates that audiences remain receptive to stories that prioritize character and emotion over irony and self-awareness. The film's legacy will likely influence future productions seeking to recapture the magic of the Amblin era while speaking to contemporary audiences in meaningful ways. The End of Oak Street opens with a carefully constructed sequence that establishes the Platt family's routine before the extraordinary disruption, and this domestic prologue serves multiple narrative functions that reward attentive viewing. The camera lingers on small details such as cereal boxes, unopened mail, and the family calendar, all of which communicate the mundane reality that will soon be shattered. Denise Platt moves through her morning with practiced efficiency, her movements suggesting a woman who has learned to suppress her own desires in service of family obligations. Greg Platt checks his phone repeatedly with an expression that hints at deeper anxieties, his distracted manner establishing the emotional distance that will become central to the story. The children emerge from their rooms with headphones on and eyes averted, their isolation from one another visible in every gesture and glance. Mitchell directs these opening scenes with a patience that borders on the anthropological, observing his characters as specimens of suburban life. The neighborhood itself appears almost too perfect, with manicured lawns and identical mailboxes that suggest conformity rather than community. This opening establishes the film's central tension between the artificial order of suburban existence and the chaotic forces that will soon overwhelm it. The block party sequence introduces neighbors whose names we will barely remember, but whose presence establishes the social world of Oak Street. These brief interactions reveal the Platt family's position within the neighborhood hierarchy, respected but not especially close to their neighbors. The party itself feels obligatory rather than joyful, with forced conversations and plastic smiles that echo the family's own emotional repression. Mitchell's camera observes these interactions from a slight distance, maintaining a documentary-like detachment that prevents audience identification from becoming too comfortable. The sequence ends with the family walking home in silence, the gap between them visible in the space they maintain between their bodies. This opening act represents some of the film's finest writing, establishing character through behavior rather than exposition. The accumulated details of these early scenes will resonate throughout the film, as the family's survival depends on their ability to overcome the patterns established here. The cosmic event that transports Oak Street to its prehistoric destination occurs with a deliberate lack of spectacle, and this narrative choice distinguishes the film from more conventional disaster cinema. Rather than depicting the phenomenon through spectacular visual effects, Mitchell presents it through the character's disoriented perspective, emphasizing confusion over clarity. The family awakens to find their familiar world subtly altered, with the morning light appearing different and the sounds outside their windows unfamiliar. Denise's first discovery that something is wrong comes through the kitchen window, where her carefully maintained garden now gives way to unfamiliar vegetation. Greg initially dismisses his wife's concerns, interpreting the changes as tricks of light or failures of memory rather than accepting the impossible truth. The children's reactions range from fear to fascination, their responses reflecting their different personalities and developmental stages. The film's restraint during this sequence creates a sense of unease that more overt spectacle might have undermined. Mitchell understands that terror is often more effective when it emerges gradually, allowing audiences to experience the characters' uncertainty rather than overwhelming them with information. The gradual revelation that the entire street has been transported intact creates a surreal image that lingers in the memory. Houses standing in isolation against a prehistoric landscape represent a visual metaphor for the fragility of human civilization. The absence of explanation for this event becomes a feature rather than a flaw, as the film commits to emotional truth over logical coherence. The characters' struggle to accept their new reality mirrors the audience's own process of suspending disbelief. This sequence establishes the film's tonal approach, balancing wonder and terror in equal measure. The decision to focus on the family's response rather than the event itself demonstrates Mitchell's commitment to character-driven storytelling. The cosmic event remains mysterious precisely because the characters never fully understand it, and their confusion becomes our own. And Hathaway's performance in the film's middle section represents some of the finest work of her career, as she navigates Denise's transformation from passive suburban matriarch to fierce protector with remarkable subtlety. The scene in which Denise first handles a weapon demonstrates the character's unfamiliarity through every aspect of Hathaway's physical performance, from her uncertain grip to her flinching response to the recoil. Her evolution occurs not through sudden transformation, but through accumulated moments of necessity, each small act of courage building toward a larger change. Hathaway's ability to convey internal conflict without dialogue represents a masterclass in screen acting, as her character struggles to reconcile her maternal instincts with the violence now required for survival. The relationship between Denise and her daughter becomes particularly fraught during these sequences, as the teenager both resents and admires her mother's growing strength. Hathaway's scenes with McGregor during the film's middle section crackle with the tension of unresolved marital issues now forced into the open by crisis. The couple's arguments about survival strategies reveal deeper disagreements about their roles within the family and their expectations of one another. Denise's frustration with Greg's hesitancy reflects years of accumulated resentment about his emotional unavailability. The actress conveys Denise's exhaustion not merely through physical performance, but through subtle changes in posture and vocal tone that suggest a woman running on pure determination. Her character's moments of vulnerability, when she allows herself to feel the weight of their situation, provide necessary contrast to her displays of strength. Hathaway's work in the film's quieter scenes, particularly a late-night conversation with her sleeping children, captures the particular terror of a parent facing the possibility of failing to protect those she loves. The performance builds toward the film's climactic sequence, in which Denise's protective instincts find full expression in a moment of spectacular action. Critics have compared Hathaway's work here to Sigourney Weaver's iconic performance in Aliens, another film about maternal protection in the face of monstrous threats. The comparison is apt, as both performances ground their spectacle in genuine emotional stakes. Ewan McGregor's portrayal of Greg Platt offers a nuanced examination of masculine anxiety and the pressure to provide that shapes contemporary fatherhood, and his performance provides crucial balance to Hathaway's more outwardly dramatic arc. Greg's secret unemployment, revealed through a series of flashbacks and confessions, explains his distracted behavior throughout the opening act while adding tragic dimension to his character. McGregor plays these revelations with a vulnerability that invites sympathy even as the character's deception has caused real harm to his family. The actor's natural warmth, evident in his earlier performances, becomes complicated here by layers of shame and defensive anger. Greg's journey toward honesty represents the film's most significant character arc, as he must learn to value emotional presence over material provision. The scenes between McGregor and Hathaway during the film's second act demonstrate their considerable chemistry, with both actors finding moments of genuine connection amid the chaos. Greg's eventual confession to his wife, delivered while they take shelter from a predator outside, represents the film's emotional centerpiece. McGregor plays this scene with restraint, allowing the words themselves to carry the weight rather than layering on excessive emotion. The character's redemption comes not through spectacular heroics, but through smaller acts of emotional courage, as he learns to be present for his family in ways that matter. McGregor's physical performance during the action sequences suggests a man discovering capabilities he never knew he possessed, his initial awkwardness giving way to something approaching competence. The relationship between Greg and his son provides particular opportunities for McGregor to demonstrate his skill, as he navigates the delicate balance between protecting the child and preparing him for adult responsibilities. The film's treatment of Greg's character arc avoids easy resolution, suggesting that the work of becoming a better father continues beyond the immediate crisis. McGregor's performance ensures that the audience remains invested in Greg's journey even when his actions frustrate, understanding that his failures stem from love rather than indifference. The actor's decision to play Greg's emotional awakening gradually allows audiences to experience his transformation as genuine growth rather than narrative convenience. The film's dinosaur sequences represent a high point in contemporary visual effects work, with industrial light and magic creating creatures that feel simultaneously scientifically plausible and cinematically terrifying, and the integration of these digital creations into practical environments demonstrates extraordinary technical achievement. The Coelophysis pack that pursues the family through their neighborhood provides the film's most sustained source of threat, with their feathered bodies and bird-like movements creating an unsettling presence unlike any dinosaur previously depicted on screen. The effects team studied modern bird behavior extensively, incorporating the quick, jerky movements of hunting birds into the creature's animation. The pack's coordinated hunting behavior suggests intelligence without anthropomorphizing the creatures or diminishing their animal nature. The larger predators, including the Allosaurus and Spinosaurus, appear less frequently, but make stronger impressions through their sheer physical presence. The size and weight of these creatures is conveyed through careful attention to their interaction with the environment, as they crush cars and demolish structures with convincing physicality. The visual effects team's greatest achievement may be the seamless integration of digital creatures into practical settings, as the dinosaurs interact convincingly with real objects and practical lighting. The decision to film the creature sequences during overcast conditions allowed for more convincing integration of digital elements with practical footage. The pterosaur attacks demonstrate particular technical sophistication, as the flying creatures must interact convincingly with characters and environments in 3 dimensions. The sound design accompanying these sequences deserves equal recognition, as the creatures' vocalizations were created through innovative combinations of animal recordings and digital processing. The roars of the larger predators carry physical presence through careful attention to low-frequency sound reproduction. The complete sensory experience of the dinosaur sequences places The End of Oak Street among the most effective creature features ever produced. The effects work succeeds because it serves the story's emotional stakes rather than overwhelming them with spectacle. The dinosaurs remain threats to be survived rather than attractions to be admired, and this orientation keeps audiences invested in the human characters' fates. The film's score by Michael Giacchino demonstrates his mastery of the orchestral adventure tradition while incorporating modern compositional techniques, and the music functions as an essential storytelling element rather than mere accompaniment. Giacchino's main theme for the Platt family carries emotional weight that develops throughout the film, with variations reflecting the characters' changing relationships. The composer's ability to shift between wonder and dread within single sequences reflects the film's tonal complexity. His work during the creature sequences heightens tension without overwhelming the action, demonstrating restraint that serves the overall experience. The score's evocation of John Williams's iconic work for Spielberg's films is deliberate, placing The End of Oak Street within a recognizable tradition while maintaining its own identity. Giacchino's use of unconventional instruments and techniques during the more unsettling sequences creates a sense of otherness appropriate to the prehistoric setting. The theme associated with the cosmic event remains mysterious and unresolved, reflecting the film's commitment to ambiguity about the phenomenon's nature. The composer's work during the film's emotional climax represents some of his finest writing, as themes established earlier in the film converge in a moment of cathartic release. The score's integration with the film's sound design creates a unified auditory experience that enhances both spectacle and intimacy. Giacchino's experience with both blockbuster franchises and prestige drama serves him well here, as he navigates between modes with remarkable facility. The music for the children's scenes carries appropriate innocence while acknowledging the danger that surrounds them. The composer's choice to emphasize the family theme over creature themes reflects the film's priorities, keeping emotional stakes central even during spectacular sequences. The score's final statement, accompanying the film's conclusion, provides emotional resolution while acknowledging the journey's cost. The music's effectiveness is demonstrated by its ability to work independently of the images while enhancing them when experienced together. Giacchino's contribution to The End of Oak Street represents a significant achievement in contemporary film scoring. The production design of The End of Oak Street creates a fully realized suburban environment that serves as both setting and thematic statement, with every detail of the Platt family home contributing to the film's exploration of domestic life under pressure. The house itself becomes a character in the drama, its familiar rooms transformed by crisis into spaces of both refuge and vulnerability. The production team's attention to the details of middle-class American life creates authenticity that grounds the fantastical elements in recognizable reality. Family photographs, children's artwork, and accumulated possessions tell stories about the characters that the screenplay never explicitly states. The gradual transformation of the home into a defensive position reflects the family's changing relationship to their environment and to one another. Windows that once admitted light become barriers against external threats, their coverings creating a claustrophobic interior that mirrors the family's emotional state. The kitchen, traditionally the heart of the home, becomes a command center where survival strategies are planned and debated. The children's bedrooms, preserved as sanctuaries of individual identity, become sites of conflict as the family must consolidate their living space for safety. The production design's contrast between the ordered interior of the home and the wild exterior that now surrounds it creates visual tension that reinforces the film's themes. The neighborhood itself, with its similar houses and uniform landscaping, becomes a haunting reminder of the conformity that characterized suburban life before the crisis. The visual contrast between manicured lawns and encroaching wilderness speaks to the fragility of human attempts to control nature. The production team's creation of the prehistoric environment demonstrates equal attention to detail, with vegetation and terrain that feel authentically alien to the modern setting. The visual effects and practical production design work together seamlessly, creating a unified world where the extraordinary feels plausible. The film's aesthetic choices reflect Mitchell's background in independent cinema, where resource limitations often demand creative solutions rather than expensive spectacle. The production design ultimately serves the story's emotional aims, creating spaces that feel lived in and worth fighting to protect. The film's exploration of childhood experience during crisis represents one of its most distinctive achievements, as Mitchell directs his young performers with sensitivity that avoids both sentimentality and exploitation, and the children's perspectives provide crucial emotional grounding for the narrative. Maisie Stella's performance captures the particular anxiety of adolescence, when the desire for independence conflicts with the need for parental protection. Her character's journey from surly distance to active participation in the family's survival reflects the crisis's capacity to accelerate emotional maturation. Stella's scenes with Hathaway explore the complex dynamics of mother-daughter relationships, particularly during moments when traditional roles are disrupted by necessity. The young actress conveys her character's internal conflict through subtle facial expressions and body language that suggest thoughts and feelings beyond what she articulates. Christian Convery's performance as the younger Platt child provides the film with its most direct access to wonder and terror, as his character experiences the prehistoric world with an openness that the adults have lost. His expressions of fear during the creature sequences feel genuine rather than performed, creating audience identification that amplifies tension. The relationship between the siblings, initially distant, develops through shared experience into genuine partnership, with both performers making this evolution feel earned rather than convenient. Mitchell's direction of his young actors demonstrates his ability to elicit naturalistic performances that serve the story's emotional aims. The children's fear is taken seriously by the film, never dismissed as childish or used as mere motivation for adult heroism. The young characters' observations often prove crucial to the family's survival, validating their perspectives and contributions. The film's treatment of childhood trauma, while not the focus of the narrative, acknowledges the lasting impact that such experiences would have on developing psyches. The performances of Stella and Convery ensure that the children remain fully realized characters, rather than mere plot devices. Their work contributes significantly to the film's overall effectiveness, grounding the spectacle in relatable human experience. The film's action sequences demonstrate Mitchell's growth as a director of large-scale spectacle while maintaining his distinctive stylistic sensibility, and the set pieces are choreographed with precision that serves both excitement and character development. The sequence in which the family first encounters a Coelophysis pack, staged across their backyard and through the house's various rooms, builds tension through careful pacing and spatial awareness. Mitchell's background in horror filmmaking informs his approach to these sequences, as he understands that anticipation often generates more anxiety than revelation. The geography of the Platt home, established during the opening act, becomes crucial during these action sequences, as audiences understand the spaces the characters navigate. The film's most spectacular sequence, involving the Spinosaurus and a flooded drainage canal, represents a significant technical achievement while maintaining emotional stakes. The action never becomes abstract spectacle, but remains grounded in the characters' immediate goals and fears. Mitchell's use of practical effects and location shooting during action sequences creates physical presence that digital-only productions often lack. The editing during action maintains spatial coherence, allowing audiences to track the characters' movements and understand their relationships to threats. The sound design during action sequences creates immersive intensity while preserving the clarity necessary for audiences to follow complex choreography. The film's action sequences escalate appropriately, with each encounter presenting new challenges that force the characters to develop new strategies. The final confrontation with a major predator represents the culmination of the family's development, as they work together with coordination that seemed impossible in the film's early scenes. Mitchell's action direction demonstrates that effective spectacle depends not on scale alone, but on audience investment in the characters' fates. The integration of action and character development distinguishes The End of Oak Street from less sophisticated examples of the genre. The film's treatment of marriage under pressure provides its most mature thematic content, as the relationship between Denise and Greg Platt becomes a lens through which the story examines contemporary anxieties about partnership, communication, and changing gender roles. The couple's initial dysfunction is portrayed without judgment, as both characters are shown to be struggling with legitimate pressures that have driven them apart. Greg's deception about his employment represents a betrayal that Denise must process while simultaneously facing external threats, creating layered dramatic conflict. The film's honest acknowledgement that crisis can either strengthen or destroy relationships gives the marriage plot genuine stakes beyond mere survival. Hathaway and McGregor's performances during the couple's confrontations capture the particular pain of long-term partners who have stopped truly communicating. The screenplay allows both characters to express valid grievances without positioning either as villain or victim. The process of rebuilding trust occurs gradually through small acts of honesty and vulnerability rather than dramatic reconciliation scenes. The film suggests that the skills required for survival, cooperation, communication, mutual support, are the same skills required for successful marriage. The couple's renewed partnership emerges not from romantic gestures, but from practical necessity and honest exchange. The film's refusal to offer easy resolution to the marriage plot acknowledges the ongoing nature of relationship work. The presence of children complicates the marital dynamic in realistic ways, as both parents must balance their own issues with their responsibilities to their offspring. The crisis creates opportunities for the couple to see one another differently, outside the patterns that had defined their relationship before the displacement. The film's treatment of marriage ultimately offers hope without naivety, suggesting that genuine connection is possible even after significant damage. The marriage plot's resolution, while satisfying, acknowledges that the couple's future work continues beyond the film's conclusion. The film's representation of the prehistoric world reflects current scientific understanding while making necessary concessions to dramatic requirements, and this approach distinguishes The End of Oak Street from dinosaur films that prioritize spectacle over accuracy. The feathered Coelophysis, representing current paleontological consensus, appears as a genuinely unsettling presence rather than a familiar monster. The creature's behavior, including their pack hunting and vocalizations, draws on research about modern bird and reptile behavior to create plausibility. The Allosaurus and Spinosaurus are depicted with attention to their distinctive anatomical features, distinguishing them from generic dinosaur representations. The film's pterosaurs demonstrate understanding of current theories about these creatures' flight capabilities and hunting behaviors. The scientific accuracy serves dramatic purposes, as creatures that feel plausible are more frightening than obvious fantasy creations. The film acknowledges that our understanding of prehistoric life remains incomplete, leaving room for creative interpretation where evidence is lacking. The creature's behavior patterns, while informed by science, are shaped to serve the narrative's escalating tension. The decision to feature multiple predator species creates a complete ecosystem that feels genuinely dangerous rather than artificially populated for dramatic convenience. The film's prehistoric environment, with its distinctive flora and terrain, reflects research about Mesozoic ecosystems while creating visually compelling imagery. The integration of modern suburban environments with prehistoric wilderness creates cognitive dissonance that enhances the film's unsettling atmosphere. The scientific plausibility of the creatures contributes to the film's effectiveness as horror, as audiences believe in the threats the characters face. The film's approach to prehistoric life demonstrates that scientific accuracy and entertainment value need not conflict. The attention to detail in creature design represents respect for audience intelligence that contributes to overall quality. The film's exploration of community under crisis, while secondary to the family narrative, provides important context for understanding the broader implications of the cosmic event, and the presence of neighbors facing the same impossible situation creates opportunities for exploring human responses to catastrophe. The block party sequence that opens the film establishes a community of individuals who will later face the same threats as the Platt family. The film's decision to focus primarily on a single family, while acknowledging the wider community's presence, creates a sense of larger stakes beyond the immediate narrative. Brief glimpses of neighbors' responses to the crisis, some panicking, some cooperating, some competing for resources, suggest the variety of human reactions to catastrophe. The Platt family's relative isolation from their neighbors, established in the opening scenes, becomes both liability and advantage as the crisis unfolds. The film suggests that community bonds, while potentially valuable in crisis, require maintenance during ordinary times to be reliable when needed. The absence of institutional response to the crisis, as no government or military presence appears, creates a sense of abandonment that intensifies the family's isolation. The film's treatment of community raises questions about social cohesion in an era of increasing individualism. The neighbors' fates remain uncertain throughout much of the film, creating background anxiety that enriches the narrative. The film avoids the dystopian cliché of community collapse into savagery, suggesting that cooperation remains possible even under extreme pressure. The limited interaction with neighbors during the crisis demonstrates how crisis can simultaneously bring people together and drive them apart. The film's community elements contribute to its realistic texture without distracting from the central family story. The representation of community ultimately serves the film's thematic concerns about the importance of connection in the face of isolation. The film's use of humor provides necessary relief from sustained tension while contributing to character development, and Mitchell demonstrates sophisticated understanding of how comedy functions within thriller narratives. The humor emerges naturally from character interactions rather than being imposed as comic relief, with the family's attempts to maintain normalcy in abnormal circumstances generating authentic laughter. The children's observations, delivered with genuine childlike perspective, provide moments of levity that feel organic to their characters. The parents' attempts to reassure their children while obviously terrified themselves create ironic humor that audiences recognize from their own family experiences. The film's humor never undermines the genuine stakes, maintaining appropriate gravity while acknowledging the absurdity of the situation. The comedic elements serve to make the characters more relatable, as humor remains a human response even in crisis. The balance between humor and terror reflects Mitchell's understanding that audiences need emotional variation to maintain engagement. The film's funniest moments often emerge from the collision between suburban expectations and prehistoric reality, as characters apply familiar solutions to unfamiliar problems. The humor contributes to the film's Amblin-era sensibility, recalling the tonal balance of films like E.T. and The Goonies. The screenplay's witty dialogue demonstrates that intelligence and entertainment need not conflict. The film's humor, while present, never becomes the dominant mode, preserving the seriousness of the survival stakes. The comedic elements ultimately serve the film's humanistic vision, suggesting that laughter and love persist even in the face of extraordinary danger. The film's ending, which I will discuss without revealing specific plot details, provides emotional resolution while maintaining appropriate ambiguity about the family's future and the cosmic event's broader implications. And this balance between closure and openness represents sophisticated storytelling that respects audience intelligence. The final sequences bring the family's emotional arcs to satisfying conclusions while acknowledging that their journey continues beyond the film's frame. The resolution of the marriage plot, while hopeful, avoids the false comfort of suggesting that all problems are permanently solved. The children's arcs conclude with them having grown through their experiences while maintaining their essential identities. The film's final images, which I will not describe in detail, provide visual poetry that resonates with the themes established throughout the narrative. The ending's treatment of the cosmic event itself remains appropriately mysterious, refusing to explain what cannot be explained. The film's final scenes suggest that the true story was never about the dinosaurs or the displacement, but about the family's reconnection. The emotional catharsis of the ending is earned through the accumulated character development of the preceding narrative. The film's conclusion avoids the temptation to provide false comfort about the character's future safety, acknowledging that danger remains. The final moments balance hope with realism, suggesting that the family is better prepared for whatever comes next. The ending rewards attentive viewing, as details established earlier in the film return with new significance. The film's final shot, which I will not describe, provides an image that will likely inspire discussion among audiences. The ending demonstrates Mitchell's confidence in his audience's ability to appreciate ambiguity. The film's conclusion ultimately satisfies the emotional contract established with audiences while leaving room for contemplation. The The film's place within the broader context of 2026 cinema reflects changing industry dynamics and audience preferences, as The End of Oak Street represents a successful example of mid-budget genre filmmaking in an era increasingly dominated by franchise properties and streaming content. The film's theatrical success demonstrates that audiences remain willing to attend cinemas for experiences that justify the expense and effort. The film's positioning as an original property, not based on existing intellectual property, makes its success particularly notable in the contemporary marketplace. The film's balance of spectacle and character represents a template that other filmmakers might profitably follow. The film's success with both critics and audiences suggests that quality remains a viable commercial strategy. The film's relationship to the Amblin-era tradition connects it to a lineage of family entertainment that continues to resonate across generations. The film's technical achievements demonstrate the continued importance of visual effects craft in creating compelling theatrical experiences. The film's performances, particularly from its leads, represent the enduring appeal of movie stars who can anchor ambitious productions. The film's release strategy, balancing theatrical exclusivity with eventual streaming availability, reflects industry adaptation to changing consumption patterns. The film's marketing successfully communicated its value proposition to audiences, generating interest without revealing too much. The film's success may encourage studios to invest in similar original genre productions. The film's critical reception demonstrates that reviewers remain receptive to well-crafted entertainment that respects traditional storytelling values. The film's cultural impact, while not yet fully measurable, seems likely to establish it as a significant entry in the dinosaur film canon. The film's legacy will likely include influence on subsequent family adventure productions. The End of Oak Street ultimately demonstrates that the fundamentals of effective cinema, strong characters, compelling stories, skilled craft, remain relevant in changing times. The film's exploration of gender dynamics within the family structure offers nuanced commentary on contemporary expectations and evolving roles, as both Denise and Greg must transcend traditional gender expectations to survive their ordeal. Denise's emergence as the family's most effective defender challenges assumptions about maternal passivity while avoiding the trap of simply reversing gender roles. Her competence with weapons and strategy develops through necessity rather than inherent ability, making her transformation feel earned rather than imposed. Greg's journey toward emotional vulnerability represents a different kind of strength, as he learns that admitting weakness can be more courageous than maintaining false strength. The film's treatment of these evolving roles avoids didacticism, presenting the characters' growth as natural responses to extraordinary circumstances. The relationship between the parents demonstrates that successful partnership requires flexibility and mutual respect for each other's capabilities regardless of gender. The children's observations of their parents' changing roles likely influence their own developing understanding of gender and capability. The film's representation of Denise as protector and Greg as emotional anchor offers a progressive vision of family partnership that feels organic rather than agenda-driven. The action sequences in which Denise demonstrates combat competence provide satisfying spectacle while carrying thematic weight about female capability. The film's treatment of gender ultimately suggests that human capacity transcends traditional categories, and that survival requires utilizing all available talents regardless of who possesses them. The performances of Hathaway and McGregor ensure that these thematic elements emerge through character rather than sermon. The film's visual representation of the prehistoric environment creates a sense of alien beauty that contrasts with the familiar suburban setting, and this visual juxtaposition generates much of the film's distinctive atmosphere. Cinematographer Michael Jalakis captures the prehistoric landscape with the same attention to detail that characterizes his approach to the suburban scenes, creating visual continuity despite the radical differences in subject matter. The vegetation of the ancient world, rendered through a combination of practical set dressing and digital extension, appears lush and threatening rather than merely decorative. The quality of light in the prehistoric scenes differs subtly from the suburban sequences, suggesting a world operating under different environmental conditions. The absence of human infrastructure in the prehistoric landscape emphasizes the family's isolation and vulnerability. The visual effects team's creation of the prehistoric sky, with its unfamiliar atmospheric conditions, contributes to the sense of displacement. The contrast between the ordered geometry of suburban architecture and the organic chaos of the prehistoric wilderness creates visual tension that reinforces thematic concerns. The film's color palette shifts between the two settings, with warmer tones in the suburban scenes giving way to cooler, more threatening hues in the prehistoric sequences. The cinematography during creature encounters emphasizes scale and speed, making the dinosaurs feel both enormous and frighteningly quick. The visual representation of the prehistoric world demonstrates that effective world building depends on consistent detail across all elements of production design and effects work. The film's imagery will likely influence subsequent productions seeking to depict prehistoric environments with similar effectiveness. The film's narrative structure, following a traditional three-act format with clearly defined turning points, demonstrates that conventional storytelling remains effective when executed with skill, and the screenplay's efficient construction contributes significantly to the film's success. The first act establishes the characters and their world with economy, using small details to communicate essential information without excessive exposition. The inciting incident arrives at the optimal moment, after audiences have developed investment in the characters, but before the opening sequences overstay their welcome. The second act escalates tension through a series of encounters that each present new challenges while developing character relationships. The midpoint sequence, which I will not describe in specific detail, represents a significant shift in the family's circumstances that raises the stakes for the remaining narrative. The third act builds toward confrontation with the film's most significant threats while bringing the emotional arcs to their conclusions. The screenplay's efficient use of setup and payoff rewards attentive viewing, as elements introduced early return with significance later. The film's runtime, approximately 95 minutes, represents an appropriate scope for the story being told, avoiding the bloat that characterizes many contemporary blockbusters. The narrative structure serves the film's thematic concerns, as the family's external journey mirrors their internal development. The screenplay demonstrates that genre storytelling can accommodate sophisticated character development without sacrificing entertainment value. The film's construction reflects Mitchell's background in independent cinema, where efficient storytelling is often necessary due to resource constraints. The film's exploration of fear as both destructive and potentially unifying force provides thematic depth that elevates it beyond simple creature feature territory, and the characters' various responses to fear reveal their essential natures while creating opportunities for growth. The children's fear, particularly in the early sequences, is presented as legitimate and worthy of respect rather than something to be overcome through bravery. The parents' attempts to manage their own fear while protecting their children create dramatic tension that resonates with parental audiences. The film suggests that fear becomes destructive when it leads to isolation, as characters who try to face danger alone consistently fail. The family's survival depends on their ability to acknowledge their fear while continuing to act despite it, a lesson that applies beyond the film's specific circumstances. The predators themselves function as external manifestations of the fears that already existed within the family structure before the crisis. Greg's fear of failure and inadequacy, Denise's fear of losing her identity, the children's fears of abandonment, all find expression through the physical threats they must face. The film's treatment of fear ultimately suggests that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act in its presence. The characters' development throughout the film reflects their growing ability to integrate fear into their understanding of themselves rather than being controlled by it. The film's exploration of fear contributes to its thematic richness while serving the genre requirements of tension and suspense. The supporting performances in The End of Oak Street, while necessarily brief given the film's focus on the family, contribute significantly to the overall texture and credibility of the production, and the casting demonstrates careful attention to even minor roles. P.J. Byrne brings warmth and specificity to his brief appearance as a neighbor, creating a character who feels like a real person rather than a narrative convenience. Chris Coy's performance as another Oak Street resident adds depth to the community portrait established in the opening sequences. The actors portraying the neighborhood children in the block party scene create authentic atmosphere that grounds the film's opening in recognizable reality. The brief appearances of other families during the crisis sequences suggest broader stories that the film chooses not to follow, creating a sense of a larger world beyond the central narrative. The casting of these supporting roles demonstrates that even brief appearances can contribute significantly to a film's overall quality. The supporting performances help to establish the normalcy that will be disrupted, making the subsequent crisis more affecting through contrast. The film's attention to these smaller roles reflects Mitchell's background in independent cinema, where every performance matters regardless of screen time. The supporting cast's contributions, while not individually celebrated in most reviews, collectively strengthen the film's foundation. The performances create a sense of community that makes the cosmic event's impact feel more significant than if the family existed in isolation. The supporting roles demonstrate the production's commitment to quality across all elements, not merely those most visible in marketing materials. The film's treatment of technology, particularly its absence from the narrative, represents a deliberate creative choice that contributes to its timeless quality and thematic concerns, as the lack of smartphones and contemporary digital culture connects the film to an earlier era of family adventure cinema. The characters' inability to access information about their situation or communicate with the outside world intensifies their isolation and vulnerability. The absence of technology forces the family to rely on direct communication and practical skills rather than digital solutions. The film's technological aesthetic, reflected in the characters' clothing and the absence of contemporary devices, creates a slightly timeless quality that prevents the story from feeling dated. This choice also eliminates convenient narrative solutions that technology might provide, forcing the characters to solve problems through ingenuity and cooperation. The film's relationship to technology suggests a critique of contemporary dependence on digital mediation of experience. The characters' forced disconnection from technology enables the emotional reconnection that forms the film's core. The absence of technology contributes to the film's Amblin-era sensibility, recalling a period when family entertainment assumed direct experience rather than mediated interaction. The film's treatment of technology ultimately serves its thematic argument about the importance of direct human connection, particularly within families. The creative choice to minimize technology demonstrates Mitchell's confidence in traditional storytelling values over contemporary convenience. The film's exploration of the relationship between civilization and nature extends beyond its central premise to inform its visual style, thematic concerns, and character development, as the collision between suburban order and prehistoric wilderness generates meaning beyond the immediate survival stakes. The suburban setting represents humanity's attempt to impose order on nature, creating controlled environments where the wild is kept at bay. The cosmic event's transportation of this artificial environment into genuine wilderness represents a reversal that strips away the illusion of control. The family's home, once a sanctuary from external threats, becomes merely a fragile structure that offers limited protection against creatures evolved for predation. The film suggests that human civilization's dominance over nature is more contingent than we typically acknowledge, subject to disruption by forces beyond our control. The prehistoric creatures, as representatives of nature's power, serve to humble the human characters who have taken their safety for granted. The family's survival requires them to adapt to natural conditions rather than expecting the environment to accommodate their needs. The film's visual representation of wilderness encroaching on suburban spaces creates imagery that resonates with environmental anxieties. The characters' relationship to nature evolves throughout the film, from initial terror to a more nuanced respect for the natural world's power and beauty. The film's treatment of this theme avoids didacticism, allowing the imagery and situation to carry meaning without explicit environmental messaging. The relationship between civilization and nature ultimately serves as a backdrop for the human drama, enriching the film's texture without overwhelming its emotional core. The film's critical reception has generated substantial discussion about the state of genre cinema in 2026, with many reviewers positioning The End of Oak Street as a welcome return to sincere family adventure in an era dominated by ironic self-awareness, and this framing has influenced audience expectations and interpretations of the film. Positive reviews emphasize the film's emotional sincerity, technical excellence, and respect for its audience's intelligence. Negative reviews focus on the film's derivative elements and logical inconsistencies, suggesting that its nostalgic approach limits its originality. The critical conversation surrounding the film reveals tensions within contemporary film culture about the value of traditional storytelling versus innovation. The film's defenders argue that execution matters more than novelty, and that The End of Oak Street demonstrates the continued viability of classic narrative approaches. The film's critics suggest that its Amblin-era homage prevents it from achieving genuine originality or cultural significance. The critical discourse has likely influenced the film's box office performance, with positive word of mouth encouraging audiences despite some negative reviews. The film's reception demonstrates that critical consensus, while not determinant of commercial success, shapes the context in which audiences encounter films. The discussion surrounding The End of Oak Street reflects broader debates about nostalgia, originality, and the value of genre entertainment in contemporary cinema. The film's place within these debates will likely influence its long-term critical reputation and cultural significance. The film's exploration of family as both burden and salvation provides its deepest thematic content, as the Platt family's relationships represent both the source of their dysfunction and the key to their survival, and this complexity distinguishes the film from simpler family adventure narratives. The family unit, initially fractured by secrets and emotional distance, must become something more than the sum of its parts to survive the crisis. The children's dependence on their parents creates vulnerability, but their presence also motivates the adults to find reserves of strength they might not discover for themselves alone. The parents' responsibility for their children forces them to set aside their own conflicts and focus on practical survival, creating opportunities for genuine reconnection. The family's survival strategies require cooperation and communication that the characters had lost in their pre-crisis lives. The film suggests that family bonds, while often strained and complicated, provide essential support in times of crisis. The characters' growth throughout the film involves learning to value their connections to one another rather than taking them for granted. The film's treatment of family avoids sentimental idealization, acknowledging that familial love often coexists with frustration, disappointment, and conflict. The survival of the family unit, rather than any individual achievement, represents the film's ultimate measure of success. The family theme connects the film to universal human experience, ensuring its resonance beyond the specific circumstances of the narrative. The film's exploration of family dynamics ultimately suggests that our relationships with those closest to us represent both our greatest vulnerabilities and our greatest strengths. The film's visual effects team faced the considerable challenge of creating creatures that would feel threatening to contemporary audiences already familiar with decades of dinosaur cinema. And their solution involved emphasizing behavioral realism over mere visual spectacle, as the creatures' movements and interactions feel grounded in animal behavior rather than movie monster conventions. The Coelophysis pack's hunting behavior, with its coordination and communication between members, creates genuine unease through its plausibility. The creatures' attention to their environment, their cautious approach to unfamiliar structures, and their responses to the humans' defensive measures all suggest real animals rather than special effects creations. The larger predator's physical presence, conveyed through their interaction with the environment, creates visceral impact that scale alone cannot achieve. The effects team's attention to the creature's eyes and facial expressions, while avoiding excessive anthropomorphization, creates moments of genuine connection between human and animal characters. The integration of practical effects for close-up creature interactions with digital effects for wider shots creates seamless visual experience. The effects work demonstrates that audience investment in creature threats depends on believability rather than mere visual impressiveness. The film's creatures will likely be compared favorably to those of Jurassic Park, the benchmark against which all dinosaur effects are measured. The visual effects team's achievement represents the current state of the art in creature creation, building on techniques developed over decades of progress in digital filmmaking. The effects work ultimately serves the story's emotional aims, creating threats that audiences take seriously. The film's screenplay, developed by Mitchell through multiple drafts before production, demonstrates careful attention to character voice and narrative economy, and the dialogue serves characterization while advancing the plot with efficiency that contributes to the film's propulsive pacing. The family's speech patterns distinguish each character clearly, with the parents' language reflecting their generation and education, while the children speak with authentic contemporary informality. The screenplay's use of subtext during the early scenes communicates the family's dysfunction without explicit statement, allowing audiences to infer the tensions that the characters themselves struggle to articulate. The dialogue during crisis sequences remains functional rather than florid, as the characters communicate necessary information with urgency appropriate to their circumstances. The screenplay's moments of emotional revelation are earned through accumulated character development rather than sudden breakthroughs. The writing demonstrates understanding of family dynamics, capturing the way that relatives communicate through shorthand, inside jokes, and shared references. The screenplay's efficiency leaves no wasted scenes, with every sequence advancing either plot or character or both. The writing balances the demands of genre storytelling with the requirements of character-driven drama, satisfying both imperatives simultaneously. The screenplay's quality contributes significantly to the film's overall effectiveness, providing a foundation for the performances and direction that build upon it. The writing demonstrates that genre entertainment can accommodate sophisticated character development without sacrificing excitement or accessibility. The film's depiction of parental anxiety, particularly Denise's fears for her children's safety, taps into fundamental human emotions that resonate across demographic boundaries, and Hathaway's performance in these moments provides the film's most emotionally affecting content. The specific terror of a parent facing threats to their children exceeds the general fear of personal danger, creating stakes that audiences with parental experience recognize immediately. Denise's protective instincts, initially expressed through practical measures like gathering supplies and securing the house, evolve into more aggressive defense as the threats escalate. The film acknowledges that parental protection has limits, and that even the most dedicated parent cannot guarantee their children's safety against overwhelming threats. The parents' conversations about their children's future, held during rare quiet moments, reveal the hopes and fears that motivate their survival efforts. The film's treatment of parental anxiety avoids exploitation, treating these emotions with appropriate seriousness and respect. The children's awareness of their parents' fear adds complexity to the family dynamic, as they must navigate their own terror while processing the unsettling experience of seeing their protectors afraid. The film suggests that parental love represents both vulnerability and strength, as the responsibility for children can motivate extraordinary effort while simultaneously creating additional sources of fear. The depiction of parental anxiety contributes to the film's emotional authenticity, grounding the fantastical elements in recognizable human experience. The film's exploration of adaptation and resilience demonstrates how ordinary people develop extraordinary capabilities when circumstances demand. And this thematic thread runs throughout the narrative as the Platt family members discover capacities they never knew they possessed. Denise's development of combat skills, Greg's emergence as strategic thinker, and the children's growth into active contributors all represent adaptation to new circumstances. The film depicts this development realistically, with skills acquired through trial and error rather than instant competence. The characters' failures matter as much as their successes, as each mistake teaches lessons that inform subsequent strategies. The family's adaptation extends beyond practical skills to include emotional and psychological adjustments to their new reality. The process of accepting the permanence of their situation, rather than hoping for rescue, represents a crucial turning point in their development. The film suggests that human adaptability, rather than any specific skill or physical capability, represents our species' most valuable survival trait. The characters' resilience emerges from their commitment to one another, as their love provides motivation to continue despite overwhelming odds. The film's treatment of adaptation avoids the simplification of suggesting that crisis automatically brings out the best in people, acknowledging that some responses to extreme circumstances are destructive rather than constructive. The family's growth throughout the film demonstrates the capacity for positive change even in the most challenging circumstances. The film's use of location shooting in actual suburban neighborhoods, rather than constructed sets, contributes to the authenticity that grounds the fantastical elements in recognizable reality, and this production choice reflects Mitchell's commitment to practical filmmaking approaches even within large-scale productions. The real homes and streets used in the film carry the weight of actual habitation, with details that would be difficult to replicate on soundstages. The production's relationship with the community where filming occurred demonstrates the logistical challenges and benefits of location shooting. The authentic environments create contrast with the digital prehistoric elements, emphasizing the strangeness of the creature's intrusion into familiar spaces. The use of practical locations for the suburban scenes allows the actors to interact with real environments, contributing to naturalistic performances. The film's grounding in actual places makes its fantastical elements more affecting, as audiences recognize the ordinary spaces that become sites of extraordinary danger. The location shooting represents a significant investment in authenticity that pays dividends in the film's overall effectiveness. The production's commitment to real environments distinguishes it from productions that rely excessively on green screen and digital environments. The locations will likely become sites of interest for film fans, contributing to the film's cultural footprint. The practical approach to production design demonstrates that traditional filmmaking techniques remain valuable even in an era of advanced digital technology. The film's exploration of the unknown and humanity's response to mystery connects it to a tradition of science fiction that emphasizes wonder and humility over explanation and control, and this philosophical dimension enriches the narrative beyond its surface genre pleasures. The cosmic event that displaces Oak Street remains unexplained not because the filmmakers lacked imagination, but because the characters' experience of mystery is essential to the film's thematic concerns. The family's inability to understand their situation mirrors humanity's fundamental position in relation to forces beyond our comprehension. The film suggests that acceptance of mystery, rather than desperate search for explanation, represents a form of wisdom. The characters' varying responses to the inexplicable reveal their essential natures, with some demanding answers while others focus on practical response. The film's treatment of the unknown distinguishes it from science fiction that prioritizes world-building and explanation over emotional truth and thematic resonance. The mystery of the cosmic event contributes to the film's atmosphere of unease, as the absence of explanation leaves open the possibility of further unexpected developments. The film ultimately suggests that some questions may remain unanswered, and that human dignity lies in how we respond to circumstances beyond our control. The philosophical dimension of the film enriches its entertainment value, providing content for reflection beyond the immediate experience of viewing. The film's costume design, under the supervision of costume designer Jennifer Starzyk, contributes subtly but significantly to character development and the film's overall aesthetic, with clothing choices reflecting the characters' personalities and circumstances before and during the crisis. The Platt family's initial costumes establish their social position and individual styles, with each character's wardrobe revealing aspects of their identity. Denise's practical but carefully chosen clothing suggests a woman who maintains standards while prioritizing function over fashion. Greg's business casual attire, worn even when not working, reflects his attempt to maintain appearances despite his unemployment. The children's clothing evolves throughout the film, becoming increasingly practical as the crisis demands adaptation. The costume design's evolution reflects the characters' psychological development, with their changing appearance mirroring their internal transformations. The prehistoric setting creates new demands on the costumes, as the family must adapt their clothing for survival in unfamiliar conditions. The costume design works in concert with the production design to create a unified visual world that supports the film's themes. The attention to costume detail demonstrates the production's commitment to quality across all departments. The costumes contribute to the film's believability, grounding the characters in recognizable reality even as their circumstances become extraordinary. The film's editing rhythm, established through the collaboration between Mitchell and editor Tyler Nelson, creates the propulsive pacing that critics have consistently praised, and the precise cutting during action sequences maintains spatial clarity while generating tension. The editing during the film's opening sequences establishes a measured pace that allows audiences to absorb the characters and their world before the crisis disrupts both. The transition from normalcy to crisis is marked by a shift in editing rhythm, with quicker cuts reflecting the characters' disorientation and panic. The action sequences employ editing techniques that maintain audience understanding of spatial relationships while conveying the chaos of encounters with prehistoric predators. The film's editing demonstrates that effective action filmmaking depends on clarity as much as speed, with each cut serving a specific narrative or emotional purpose. The rhythm of the film varies appropriately, with quiet character moments providing necessary relief from intense action sequences. The editing contributes to the film's overall effectiveness as entertainment, maintaining audience engagement throughout the running time. The film's efficient editing reflects Mitchell's background in independent cinema, where resource constraints often demand creative solutions in post-production. The editing choices throughout the film demonstrate sophisticated understanding of how cutting shapes audience experience and emotional response. The film's sound mixing and design create an immersive auditory experience that enhances the visual storytelling while maintaining the clarity necessary for audiences to follow complex sequences, and this technical achievement represents an often overlooked element of the film's overall quality. The sound design establishes the suburban setting through ambient noise that creates a sense of ordinary life before the crisis disrupts it. The transition to the prehistoric environment is marked by changes in ambient sound, with unfamiliar animal calls and natural sounds replacing the familiar acoustic environment of suburbia. The creatures' vocalizations, created through sophisticated sound design techniques, contribute significantly to their threatening presence. The mixing balances dialogue, effects, and music to ensure that all elements serve the storytelling without competing for audience attention. The sound design during action sequences creates intensity while preserving the spatial information that audiences need to understand the action. The film's use of silence during suspense sequences demonstrates understanding of how absence of sound can create tension. The sound team's work contributes to the film's overall immersive quality, creating an auditory world that matches the visual environment. The technical sophistication of the sound design represents the current state of the art in theatrical sound production. The film's audio elements will likely be appreciated by audiences experiencing the film in high-quality theatrical settings, where the full range of the sound design can be appreciated. The film's relationship to the horror genre, evident in Mitchell's approach to tension and suspense, demonstrates how genre elements can enrich family adventure narratives without compromising accessibility, and this hybrid approach distinguishes The End of Oak Street from more straightforward dinosaur films. The sequences in which the family first encounters the prehistoric creatures employ horror techniques, with gradual reveals and sustained suspense that generate genuine fear. Mitchell's experience directing It Follows informs his approach to these sequences, as he understands how to create dread through anticipation and suggestion. The horror elements serve the story's emotional aims, making the threats feel real and the stakes feel immediate. The film's balance of horror and adventure creates a tone that appeals to audiences seeking both excitement and emotional engagement. The genre hybridity reflects contemporary trends in filmmaking, as boundaries between genres become increasingly fluid. The horror elements distinguish the film from more sanitized family entertainment, acknowledging that genuine stakes require genuine danger. The film's treatment of violence, while not gratuitous, does not shy away from the consequences of encounters with predators. The horror influence contributes to the film's effectiveness, creating tension that sustains audience engagement throughout the narrative. The genre hybridity represents Mitchell's distinctive contribution to the dinosaur film tradition. The film's exploration of the relationship between parents and children extends beyond the Platt family to touch on universal themes of protection, trust, and the process of letting go, and these elements contribute to the film's emotional resonance across demographic boundaries. The parent's journey involves learning to trust their children's capabilities while continuing to protect them from age-appropriate dangers. The children's journey involves learning to accept parental protection while developing their own agency and competence. The film acknowledges the inherent tension in these dynamics, as parental protection can sometimes impede children's development. The crisis creates opportunities for the children to demonstrate capabilities that their parents might not have recognized in ordinary circumstances. The parents' recognition of their children's growth represents an important emotional development in the family dynamic. The film's treatment of parent-child relationships avoids simplification, acknowledging that love and conflict coexist within family structures.